Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of these quarantine interview episodes of the SWW show. I'm Mike. Today I have with me not AJ yet again. Could you please tell me, sir, what the name of the game you're working on and what your name is?
I'm working on a game called Fortune Glory, and my name is Alan Ruck.
So Alan, you have, I would argue, from what we're talking to, because we got to talk a bit before this too, while we got to get me into the game, which was an adventure on its own.
Yep.
I would argue, what's interesting is you, in the indie scene, as we talk about, had a very interesting past over the last 20 years. If you mind giving us like the top level, kind of like some of the other games you've worked on.
Sure. So I guess what started it all was in 1999. I published a game called Paintball 3 Extreme, and it became surprisingly viral back then. It spread by word of mouth and websites like Game Hippo and stuff. And I had 80,000 downloads with my really bad counter I didn't know how to count with. And because I was pretty new. I was programming. I was a sophomore in high school. But I had enough people playing at all times of day that the server, there always was a match playing at any time of day. So it was pretty darn cool. It changed my life.
I mean, I didn't realize the part you were a sophomore in high school, which makes it a lot more impressive, I'm gonna argue. And also, I do appreciate the fact of a game like that had someone playing at all given points. Because you feel like big games have an issue where half time you log on and you go, there is no one playing this game. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a pretty good community. We had forums that people were on all the time, so I think that helped keep people around.
Yeah, so then somewhat recently, so you go under the umbrella of ZoopTech. Is that
Yes,
okay?
ZoopTech, yep.
So we're here to talk about then ZoopTech's most recent game, which is Fortune Glory. Do you mind giving us the elevator pitch of the game?
Sure. Fortune Glory is effectively a looter shooter, except with swords and bows.
So
and it's all physics-based.
Immediately, I'm going to correct you then. It's looter. I don't know if a shooter is the right term.
Yeah, so that's why we, in our official pitch, we say like a looter brawler. But I don't know if anyone clearly understands brawler as much as shooter. Like there's so much loot elements, and like there's a campaign map you conquer and such. It's more similar to what people think of as a looter shooter. It's just instead of using guns, you use bows and swords but the same like randomly generated loot stats on it and such.
Both looking at the game and playing the game, I would argue it's a very unique thing. So I'm curious, like, where did this come up? Like this idea you had?
Oh man, so this has been an idea a long time coming. There's actually been many predecessors to Fortune Glory. So I think it started with Heroism. Yeah, Heroism, the second Heroism. So there was a Heroism 1, which is actually just a like multiplayer. It was like an MMORTS thing, and ZoopTech did publish that. It never gained much traction, but and then many years later, I started learning a lot more 3D, and I learned how to integrate physics with it. And so the idea was, this is right as Minecraft is becoming popular, the idea was to make a like first-person physics-based Minecraft-ish thing where the combat would be all physics-based, just like Fortune Glory. And that we had to keep cutting the game's scope down over and over and over and over again. This is actually where we met our artist, Mazer, and eventually turned into just like an arena game, where it was just you versus some number of opponents. It was single player only, but you had broadly the same weapons you have in Fortune Glory now, and you would just kind of duel them. But we had a more like realistic-ish art style, or maybe cartoonish art style, and it had so many issues and it was so crummy that we never released it. And the goal was to remake Heroism someday again. Many years passed, and I was at a game jam. Actually, I had to go watch a game jam. I was like guardian of the kiddies, and I was sitting underneath a table of all places in the middle of the night.
Most game jam story ever, for the record. You're like, I was sitting under a table in the middle of the night. It's like 3 in the morning, and somehow the room is like 25 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. And the kids are working on their game, and I'm half dead. And I started daydreaming about, man, it would be so cool to have a new version of Heroism where I just focused on like multiplayer combat instead of the single player combat. Like the arena thing wasn't planned in the original Heroism game. It was supposed to be build a kingdom kind of thing, but we got narrowed down to an arena game. And then I was like, we take elements from like Mountain Blade. You have a big battlefield, that's your arena, but it's all multiplayer based. And if there's actually supposed to be building at one point, like where you build a castle like super duper quick, then it'd be capture the flag between the two castles, but with the same physics based combat. And I was working on a different game at that point called Avarice. It was a build your own like flying tank thing. And we actually went through greenlight with that. And unfortunately, even though it went through greenlight, there just never was much interest. So we ended up canceling that game. And like, I don't know, 6 months before we canceled the game, we made a prototype of what we called Nightlight, which would become Forging Glory. And I played that with some students I taught at the time. And I played this really cheesy prototype of Nightlight with my students, and they just loved it. They absolutely loved it, and they wanted to play it, even though it was just like some hacky prototype. Like they were like, "Oh, can we go play after school today?" And so that gave me a good sign that maybe that's something to work on. So eventually, canceled Avarice, and Nightlight became the main game, and worked on that on and off. It wasn't the primary game. I tried to have like one primary game at a time, and worked on that on and off for like 2 years, and then it finally became the main game 4 years ago. And been working on it ever since. I guess the other point of note was we did go to Austria. We got invited to Ars Electronica, which is this like art music show thing. And our composer arranged all this. He's a famous guy from Austria named Miguel Kurtzman. He's done a bunch of albums. He used to do commercials for people and such. And the idea was to have this live esports show, like with live music. And so at this Ars Electronica event, Miguel had his organs and a drummer, and like he's like surrounded by instruments, and live as we were doing this Nightlight tournament, he was playing music with it. Yeah. And that pretty much started us towards today, Forging Glory.
Immediately, just to clarify everyone, because as we get into Forging Glory, for how deep of a game this is, and I'd say a lot of unique looks in it, just to clarify, Zooptek's not that many people, right?
No, I am the main guy behind everything. I'm the only full-time guy. For most of the, I don't know, last 10 years or maybe a few years less. I don't remember exactly when he came on, but he's been there for a long time. And then we have a business guy who unfortunately has had to depart for the most part. So it's back to pretty much me and Mazer again. And we've had like intern artists and stuff.
Yeah, so as we get into like, because the thing that immediately amazed me about Forging Glory, either between playing it, going to the menus, like the stuff, is there's a lot to this game. Like there is fundamentally like a lot there of like the different things you can do with the weapons, customization, all of the mechanics in there. I'm like, just for like, I knew you guys are really small. Like I'm like, oh, this just feels like you could tell like you very much are a systems heavy person. It felt like immediately.
Yes, yeah, I definitely am. I mean, I'm an engineer at heart at my core, so Yeah, definitely a lot of game systems and a lot. I definitely push the boundaries technologically, probably more than I should for someone my size. So, um, just can't help myself.
So I've got to ask then. So we're gonna go into dig into some of the systems then. So one of the things that is, it's like, do you have a rough number of like how many pieces of loot are in this game?
Yeah, we did the math once. Man, it was. Don't quote me a number, but it was like in the billions if you count all the possible permutations. It's. I mean, there's. I more importantly, there are 65, I think, modifiers. So modifiers are things like plus 10% critical damage and stuff like that. You know, numeric changes. And then we have over 20 traits. Traits are like special abilities, like MOBA 1, 2, 3, 4 abilities. Um, and also our traits can be randomly generated, which then that explodes even more possibilities. So there's just lots of permutations. It's just like Borderlands. Borderlands, they say have billions of guns, but it's really they just have 7 barrels, 10 stocks, whatever. And
You
you
just start
can,
multiplying, yeah.
yeah,
So the
exactly.
difference on this Borderlands, I think, is a very interesting comparison. Is Borderlands is a PvE with a hair of PvE non-competitive game, where I feel like you guys are very obviously a PvP game, and a lot of times at your core. So
We
okay,
were. We moved away from that. So that's why it was kind of helpful. I know I was kind of rambling with the story of like how did the game evolve to where it was now. But like originally, esports was actually a primary focus for many years. Like after we did Austria, we even had potential investors get interested. And they're like, "Oh, we want to get on this esports bandwagon. You guys can be it." And unfortunately, all fell through. But we didn't even get to the meeting. They like the main guy who was super interested in like buying us out, and they wanted to build like a whole like empire around us. They themselves got bought out the day of our pitch. So our business guy Rishu and I we spent months preparing this pitch, and like we are literally outside of their office ready to go, and they call us and say, "Sorry, we have to cancel, our company got bought out."
there's so much to that I know you probably can't unpack because of logistical reasons. But like, that's amazing that you guys are there. They're like, I like the idea of like you're sitting in the lobby, but you still get a call from someone being like, "No, I'm sorry, this meeting's done." You're like, I'm right here." Like, what do you mean it's done?
Yeah, they said they might contact us back, and they never did. I mean, I know the guy. Well, I know a guy who knows the guy. So like I could try to rekindle it, but the game has dramatically changed since then. Like we have since embraced that esports is really hard because of the game. The game is, uh, it's not super duper competitive. I would say it's more like Smash Brothers competitiveness. So Smash Brothers is like accidentally competitive. Where it wasn't designed to be competitive though. Like they tried to Nintendo has said many times they try to just make it fun for everyone. They don't try to make it this ultra competitive thing. And Fortune Glory is natural like that too. Like in most of our game modes, we have auto balancing where the losing team gets extra reinforcements and such to try to keep the matches closer. And we talked to who was it? We talked to a guy from Blizzard. He wasn't at Blizzard time. He worked at Blizzard one time, and then he split off to start his own stuff. And this was like another potential investor, and they were actually discouraged. They're like, "Oh, this is not competitive enough because you have these auto balancing elements and the loot elements. Like that's that makes it not competitive. This can't be an esport." And although the auto balancing with reinforcements I totally see, but even our loot is balanced. Like for every positive stat, you get a negative stat. So even over time, generally your power level doesn't dramatically increase; it stays about level.
Just kind of was my kind of led to that when I was asking that too, because I go, this thing just inherently, I don't understand how, from a back end point of view, you get to like balancing it of like making sure stuff is fair, and I'm like, this just feels so much that it's almost impossible.
Yeah. So yeah, the counterbalance is because we were originally trying to be an esports game. It's really surprisingly simple. The math, it's just pretty much everything has a cost on it. So like a hit point, if we use dollars and cents, just an example, a hit point is say $1. Uh, Regeneration costs $10. And so for every point of regeneration, you are now $10 in debt. And so you'd have to have like negative 10 hit points to counterbalance 1 point of regeneration.
For the record, sounds way simpler when you explain it, but like just staring at that, I have a degree in game design. I have no clue how this is. Just because like it's so much there, and I'm like, I understand on the back end there has to be like you're pulling some sheets of like, okay, here's this stats, this is this, and I'm still like, but it just feels like I'm throwing so much on the ground.
Yeah. There's to get to that, did like the concept was easy in my head, but to actually get it coded, like the random generation code for the items is just bonkers because there's so many layers to deal with. It's not, it's you have to find the counterbalances, but then you have to worry about like just how does it feel. So okay, so you just you got a item with lifesteal on it, but back in the day, how much of a modifier you get was dependent on how much glory or essentially how much experience your account had. So if you're a new player, you got some lifesteal on your sword or whatever, you get like 5%, which was about 1 hit point per hit of healing, and it essentially was get that first lifesteal item. It's like, oh yeah, that's powerful. I can see it doing something. We also used to have a lot more modifiers per item, and so what we do is we actually we generate items and we try to like reduce how many modifiers there are, particularly negative modifiers, because we found if you get like one really powerful positive modifier, but then you get 3 really weak negative modifiers, people just assumed that they were bad items, even if those negative modifiers to do multiple passes to make it an item that people are actually excited to try. We can't just go total random and say, hey, here you go, good luck. A lot of players are actually like, oh, just whatever, sell it. They just end up selling every single item because they couldn't tell that it was at least worth trying.
And the items here, did you guys ever do you ever think of doing, or maybe you didn't, I didn't notice it, just a random game mode where you just randomly get random items just to have those players who like are concerned about getting too much in depth with all those items then?
Yeah, so way back in the beginning, back when it was supposed to be more esports and more MOBA-ish, the idea was not to have a persistent account. The idea was that every match you'd have like a Path of Exile kind style mini skill tree thing. And as you played through the 10-minute match, you'd be choosing your skills and choosing your modifiers and such on this little skill tree. And that would make it so every match you would just kind of pick the nodes that you needed to get to win the match. So like if you're a melee, you'd pick the lifesteal nodes and such. I guess I'm not sure why we never fully embraced it. I remember working on like the UI for that and getting it started. I guess we knew that we had to have a global account system, and we knew that we wanted to give some kind of loot. Originally, it was supposed to be just skins, and I guess why don't we just stick the modifiers on the items instead of doing the skill tree thing? I think maybe it was kind of a convenience thing initially. I'm not sure entirely where that split occurred. It was like 6 years ago now.
Interesting. Okay, so as we I think we kind of glossed over. So do you mind? And maybe I'm gonna maybe pick your baby for a second. Pick what is your favorite weapon and kind of more explain to people how it works. Obviously, because obviously there's I think 7 weapons in the game, variety type, and obviously each of them play a little bit differently.
Yeah. So, I've been switching my favorite weapon a lot. So my go-to combination is a sword and a shield. That was my go-to build for probably a year plus. I say a year meaning once we had beta players. Playing by myself, I just kind of use whatever. But when I'm playing with all the players, like sword and shield's the main thing. So the one-hand sword is actually the least interesting. It's slightly faster attack speed, but it does slightly less damage than the two-hand sword. It doesn't have any special abilities like knockdown or anything like that. The main star of this build is the shield, because the shield is a hard counter to arrows and projectiles. It also can block. It doesn't take as much skill to block a melee attack. You pretty much just point the shield in the direction of the incoming attack. It's gonna block. And so it makes you very tanky, and it allows you to live a long time, which in Fortune Glory's scoring system, kill streaks is a huge way to get a lot of glory, a lot of points. And so essentially I could live a whole match. I could almost live an entire match without dying, or maybe I'd die like twice. And I would just be getting so much glory because I had this huge kill streak going on. Nowadays I use like the two-hand sword more often, which is far more interesting to talk about because it focuses on something. Two-hand sword deals with knocking characters over. Particularly if you do a smash attack, which is just like Smash Brothers smash attack. You sit there and charge it up. And if you aim for the legs, you'll knock them down. And you can actually throw them this way because the game's all physics-based. So like if there is a hit to the left of you and the enemy's right in front of you, if you swing from right to left, you will throw the enemy into the pit, getting an instant kill. So most weapons have some kind of specialty thing like that. Bows can pin guys to the ground. Crossbows are like sniping weapons. Pistols are rapid fire projectile weapons, no arc. And yeah.
So immediately, this is gonna be one of the more. I'm not gonna say negative. It's more of the more things that I think immediately was a little more unclear to me. So I'm curious. How is the feedback been? Because you're in, I hate to call it an open beta, you're in some sort of more beta-y form in the game right now. So
yeah, we're in a pseudo-closed beta. Like, we don't give keys to... We don't have it, like, up on Steam where anyone can download any time. Someone has to actually talk to me to get the key, but...
So what I'm questioning is the response to an understanding from the player point of view of how you get points, or as you call them, the glorious things in a match. Because I feel like to me that was one of the things I felt was a little more unclear when I was playing.
Yeah, glory is surprisingly familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. And definitely this is why the beta is so important, because we've been getting a lot of feedback the last few months. We've had a closed beta going for longer, but we just didn't have many players. And the last few months we've been tremendously increasing our population of testers. But glory is confusing and relatable because it's like experience points in any other game, but the amount you get it's not like a static number per enemy. It's not like, Call of Duty, when you kill someone you get 100 experience points, and simple as that. It's more advanced than Call of Duty. Is like, ooh, you get an extra 20 experience points if you kill someone with a headshot. It's that, like, times 100. All the various ways you can interact with an enemy can give you more glory. So, and even like comboing attacks, like the goal is such to make it as stylistic as possible. So I guess it's kind of like a Bayonetta in that regard. You get more glory the more stylistically you kill an enemy. So if you knock someone down, you hit them while they're on the ground, they stand back up, you hit them in the head, and then you knock them off the platform. Like, that will get you a ton more glory than if you just keep hitting them in the arm over and over and over until they die.
Started playing game 100%. I did something similar, and I kept being like, why am I getting so less points than the AI that's killing me?
Yeah, and especially as a new character, since you don't have as many modifiers and you don't know, like, two-hand sword specialist knocking guys down, like, you weren't aware of the possibilities of how to maximize your glory. The style combo, which is new, that was only new within, heck, I think after you started playing, I think the style combo came in maybe. But now that actually shows in the bottom center, just like Call of Duty does, it shows you all the like adjectives, all the descriptions of all the ways you interacted with an enemy. So you can clearly see that, like, hitting them in the torso for the 6th time is not getting me any new points. But, if I knock them down, all of a sudden it's exponential. So, man, knocking them down, then hitting them was worth way more.
So, jumping out of this for a second, the other thing I really wanted to ask is, your art style, to me, is this very intriguing thing, and I'm very curious, where it came to be from like development side of like this very. It reminds me almost like a semi-Tron like look to it.
Yeah, if you go on our YouTube, you can see we have a video of the original prototype, the prototype that I was playing with those students a long time ago, and it was like ugly as freaking sin. It was extremely colorful, and everything was like pseudo metallic. It really didn't make much sense at all. But the new version, yeah, it's definitely way more Tron, and Tron was definitely influence. At the end of the day, the biggest deciding factor with the Tron-y look was it was something we could accomplish with only one artist and a part-time one at that. It's we had to pick an art style that we could achieve, and also we learned from heroism anything that's even remotely realistic, it is very distracting from the medieval combat experience. So we knew we had to do some kind of really stylistic art style to get around all the weirdness that is the physics puppety avatars you control. They really are controlled like puppets, like under technologically. It's interesting.
That is totally the when you understand the behind the engine of a lot of game stuff, you go, no, a lot of things just like work really weirdly. We're gonna call them just always.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't even. It was only a few months ago that we added like true animations. So because all the sword fighting is all dynamic and you get to control your swings, like there's no pre-made swing animation in the game, and so we didn't even have a need for an animation, like a true animation system, like a conventional one, until recently. We pretty much only added it pretty much for walking, to make walking feel or look less robotic. So yeah, that there's not really many conventional, so we had to do this weird puppet like thing to control the sword swings.
We'll say like a pain. So
Yeah.
I am curious now in the sense of we talk about you guys are in this semi-closed beta, you on your Discord server, bug you type beta right now. When do you plan to go more public in like an early access vein, or roughly?
Yeah, so that all is even an interesting story by itself. I'm just filled with stories. So we were supposed to go in early access actually the beginning of this month, and we had to delay because we pretty much spent the whole previous, I don't know, 4 weeks before that, just fixing bugs. There have been lots of, now that we've been increasing our beta tester population, we've found way more bugs. Just issues dealing with different computer configurations. Like we have a guy I'm pretty sure has some kind of malfunctioning video card, but for whatever reason only our game crashes due to it. Like the error from is saying that his graphics card is like either unplugged or he's running out of memory, but he can play any other game, so I don't know what the deal is there, but he is the only person with this memory problem. And we've spent weeks just trying to figure out what it could be. We've run into weird things like that. We've run into issues like internationalization because we have players coming from around the world and they're trying to play, and weird things with like parsing data is can blow up because they have strange characters in their names that the parser doesn't understand. We've had our fair share of networking problems, just desyncs between client and server
We
and
have?
such.
I had no clue there was any network issues at all.
Yeah, well, yours is actually a different issue. Yours is actually closer to a parsing problem, even though you're not using any internationalization, but yours is actually a parsing problem. And so, thank you for helping me with that. That was a huge lifesaver. I just ended up. I ended up just encoding the whole thing so there could be no parsing problems. But yeah, we're using WebRTC to get around firewalls and such. It's an internet technology for like streaming chat and such through the web.
Yeah, because you told me you're running like in a secret web browser stuff. And I'm like, this is like it's such like a oh, I didn't think of doing that.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other interesting thing. but to finish what I was saying about WebRTC, so that so this is like a relatively new technology. I think Google invented it, but essentially the idea is like all those like IO games that are out there right now, like Gario and such. I believe most of those operate on WebRTC, which allows a web browser to have a real connection, a direct connection with a server, opposed to like normal web communication. It's all requests and responses. So having like a real-time game was pretty darn hard in a web browser before WebRTC. And the other advantage of WebRTC, because it's essentially designed to work in a browser, is it gets around a lot of firewall problems. And so we needed that because as our tiny company, we can't build a bunch of servers and host them all like Call of Duty does. And so WebRTC allows us to have players host servers, but not everything, which gets into the web browser thing.
That's what I was kind of curious on that from a technical point of view. Then why? So was it more of a cost mechanism from going to
Yes.
that versus like an AWS or something like that?
Yeah. The whole technical side of the physics makes it very, very interesting. So because of the physics, we can't simulate everything as easily in the match server as another non-physicsy game would. Technically, our match server does not run a full physics simulation. It runs like a partial one. And that means actually the clients, because they actually have the graphics cards with the hardware capabilities to run physics, the full-blown physics simulation, they actually will communicate to the match server what their perception of the details of the physics simulation is, and then the match server decides who's right, essentially. That's a very simplistic explanation. And so essentially the match server its real purpose is to just clarify who's right on the physics simulation and then give points accordingly.
That has to be. I can imagine debugging that has to be a pain because there's probably. I can imagine there are moments where there's three competing things being like, "No, I'm right. No, I'm right."
Yeah, sort of. The one client does kind of get the title of the authoritative client, but that authoritative client can move around, which that's difficult. But it's mostly just good. All of this complexity mostly because we wanted to have the fine-grained accuracy of the physics. Like we didn't want to fake it all in the match server. We wanted to. Complexity has definitely caused a lot of desyncs between like client server or just different clients. Even like a bug that still continues to this day is every once in a while a player can appear to be like running around on like their head is on the platform, so it's like a slug running around on the platform, and it's because the clients are disagreeing where exactly all of his arms and all of his body parts are.
Again, folks, this is what you get for networking a physics game, which is why a lot of, I'd say, smaller indie games go, it's a physics game, it's all local, have a good day.
Yeah, exactly. It's challenging. But arguably the more interesting side of all this is we do have to worry about security, and you're talking about the web browser, and that is why there's a web browser component to this thing. The web browser is there to hold all of your account information. And something that very few players realize is that you can actually log into zooptech.com, and you can look at your Fortune Glory account just through your browser. Like you can play with loot, you can go shop, you can go craft, you can do all that account related stuff just on zooptech.com.
A lot of ways, actually, in the long term, I bet will be really nice. Of like, oh, I have 10 minutes. I don't feel like opening the game, making my computer's fan go crazy. I just go on the account, do this. So when I play later, it's really easy.
Yeah, and also it works on your phone. So when you're sitting on a bus, you could go play with your builds. Like I used to play EVE Online. I spent probably more time in one of those stupid like build a ship websites than I did playing the actual game. Yeah, I mean I'd be on my bus going to work and I'd be tweaking my ship. So I look forward to people messing with that on the website.
So I'm gonna put you on the hot seat as we get to the tail end of this, and then I'm gonna try pushing you. So I understand you're gonna walk around this question. What? So let's look like a year to two from now with this game. Do you feel at that point you'll still be in early access? Do you be in this closed beta? Do you feel that game will be a full, complete product at this point?
So we'd definitely be in early access. We were potentially in negotiations for another esports like show, the live music show thing, this summer. But because of the coronavirus, there's been no response back. But whether that's happening, it would be happening just June or July. So I don't think it's going to happen at this rate. I don't think anyone's even trying to plan anything for the summer anymore. So we had to be in early access for that. The intention is the start of next month, April. Was it? No, not. We are in April now. In May 1st, yeah. We'd be in early access on Steam. 2 years from now, I mean, we should be released by then. But
Okay, so that is okay. And then what? So obviously, the game right now, I'd argue, is as common is mostly very stable, and I feel like there's a good chunk of balanced stuff there. Is it much more content you want to produce while in early access, or is it much more balance fixes and stability and networking stuff?
oh yeah, we have a laundry list. So our public Trello only shows like a tiny fraction of what our internal Trello had. Like I literally have like probably 100 pages of things I want to add to the game, which given its looter shooter ish nature, that's a good thing. It'll keep people around. There'll be always new exciting things to add. In fact, today we're supposed to be working on the new unlock tree to help people like you learn about the game. You'll slowly unlock everything and it'll be taught to you each little piece. Yeah, there's tons of stuff we want to add. Yeah, it's hard for me to quantify what those would be, but there's
A lot. We'll nicely say you're going to be very busy the next 2 years. Is probably the nice way to put it.
yeah, yeah. There's just so much that's not even explored right now. Like technically, there's the campaign maps. So it's like Warframe or Destiny, where you have this campaign map and you have to conquer each node. But ours are infinite and randomly generated. So when you finish one campaign, you start another one. And not only that, unlike Destiny and Warframe, you can share your campaign maps with a friend. And so you can go join another person's campaign and usually fight with them, but nothing's stopping a player from fighting against each other. So something that's like, it's there right now, but no one has done it, is to do a competitive campaign where you're fighting against each other, like trying to conquer the map.
Shocked no one has done that. That's the beginning. I go, really? That's to me sounds like the first group of two friends. You go, you know what we're gonna do.
Surprisingly, a lot of our players are very cooperative. Like, so when in a campaign map, you choose a faction to join, and when you win the campaign, you get certain items from that faction, and so you pretty much choose which faction to fight for based on what items they're going to give you. And so most players just say, "Hey, who wants this item? Come join me." And it's, so there's even the way they ask the question is, "Hey, play with me." We have only one player that's like super like competitive. Like he pretty much won't play unless people are playing against each other. But he just plays like the custom matches, not as part of a campaign. Like he only played enough campaign to get his account going. He just likes custom matches where it's, don't worry about campaigns, just I want to duel you and win.
Of course, and win. That's the important part.
Yes. But he might be the only person that might be interested in a PvP campaign so far. But as we continue to add more beta players, I hope someone will try, because I'm just curious what's going to happen. Like, I have no clue. It's never been done before.
Well, okay then. Well, as we're adding more beta players, and I think we're to tail into this, can you tell us where to find the game, and then if they want to become a beta tester, how is their steps to do that?
Sure thing. So ultimately, you need to end up on our Discord. Pretty much everywhere where Forging Glory is at, whether it be Game Jolt, Steam itself, IndieDB, everywhere. If you just Google Fortune Glory or go to our website, Zooptech, ZOOPTEK.com, there's a link on all of those saying, if you want a free key, join our Discord. If you join our Discord, just say hello to me and I'll send you a key. It's that easy.
Do you have, so you guys are early access sometime in May. Do you have a price of what that's going to cost?
Yes. So it's going to be $25 when it's not on sale. But as we all know, people only buy things on sale. So, so it's going to be cheaper than that.
Okay, so full price, it's a $25 game when it's in early access, and if everyone uses Steam, that just means wait towards the sale, and it might be cheaper. But $25 is what it costs. As we said, zooptech.com, go to the Discord, bug him, and mystically you end up in a key into the fighting game to gain your glory.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining me for this fun discussion of the technicals of the game. Way more probably people expected about some networking and some fighting in this game. And best of luck with developing the rest of it.
We could do another interview where we talk about other things. It's what naturally came up in our conversation.
Of course. That's fine. 6 months from now, when the game is broken for a different reason, will be a whole nother discussion about all that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for joining me for this.
Thanks for doing this with me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview episode of the SWW show. I'm calling these the fun quarantine editions because all of us are in some capacity stuck in quarantine or isolation or whatever we decide to call it today. Today I have with me a special guest who, again, is not named AJ because I've been doing a lot of these interviews. Could you tell me, sir, what your name is and what the game you're working on is?
My name is Simon Vikland, and I work on a game called GTFO.
I've kind of seen the game on and off for the past few years. Still, I gotta say, because I never talked to you guys, amazing name that I'm surprised has never been taken.
Yeah, well, some people hate it, but the truth is, hate it or love it, you remember it.
And that's why it's one of those things of like, I'm really shocked just fundamentally whenever you get like an acronym like that is just not taken for like multimedia capacity, just because it is one of those things of like, oh, I'll remember it, or it's really easy to look up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know if at this point if it's because YouTube has learned what I'm looking for when I Google for GTFO. But when I Google for GTFO, I actually find out about the game rather than the acronym.
Yeah, I guess that works out. So for everyone who doesn't know, if they haven't heard of it, could you tell us what is a GTFO?
GTFO is a game developed by a small studio called 10 Chambers Collective, of which I am a member, and it is it's a genre bending sort of thing. It's in the vein of first-person 4-player co-op PvE shooters like Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 and the Payday games. 3 other members of this 9-man team, including myself, worked on the 2 Payday games. But it's a lot more slow-paced and like leaning into horror and almost like survival horror, with the you get so little ammunition and so little health that you're always like hanging by a thin thread. So it's like a more stealth-based and more slow-paced and strategic, I'd say, cooperative first-person shooter game.
I don't offend you when I say this, but it visually reminds me of what Alien Colonial Marines was trying to be combined with like Outlast. Is like my immediate look at this game always.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing, I guess. I mean, a lot of people talk. Obviously, everyone loves at least the first 2 Alien movies in the Alien franchise, and we've been looking at those movies and taking a lot of cues in terms of like the mood and the lighting and the fog and everything. So yeah, it's supposed to feel a lot like that, I guess, because it's what inspires us.
So yeah, one of the things that does fascinate me about you guys is, on a fundamental level, and maybe you talk about it depending on how long you've been a team, is you're one of this new era of teams, I call them, that are like spawning from AAA to like create what I'm defining as the new like middle ground of games. Because I think you'd probably describe it too. You're not quite AAA level, but I think you guys seem like you're making a game, and fundamentally that's more polished than like the indie game level what we expect. So I'm very curious about like going from like what was a decent sized team to now being like 10, 15 of you on this team.
What was the last sentence there? I didn't
Oh, I was
catch
gonna
that.
say, so what has it been like going from like your giant team to like your team of like the 10 to 15 of you on this?
Yeah, well, it's the second time in my career that this has happened because and it happened with a few other members of the team as well because we were in the same company called Grin that went bankrupt back in 2009, and Grin was like 300 people, 250, 300 people. And then we started all over again, and we were like 9, 10 people, starting Overkill Software, which developed the first Payday the Heist, the first Payday game. And then that small company was bought or acquired by Starbreeze. And Starbreeze grew. Starbreeze was already a bigger company than we were. And we at that point were like 40 people maybe. And so it grew, and it grew a lot. And most of us left. I was the last to leave out of the people in 10 Chambers who worked at Starbreeze. I was the last to leave. I left in 2015. But that company was huge by then. It's not as big now because they're in some trouble because they were banking on this Walking Dead game being a success, and it wasn't. And now they're in dire straits. But yeah, it was a huge company in 2015 when I left. So that was the second time that I jumped from like a huge company where I felt like a small cogwheel in a big machinery. And it's security, sure, and you know what you're supposed to be doing at any given point. But I like it more in the smaller teams where you can put your mark on the product to a greater extent, and you can jump between, like you can wear several hats, and whenever you're not as inspired doing one of your tasks, you can jump to another one. In a larger company, you naturally become more specialized because there's like a team maybe even of people doing any given like detail within a game. So you wouldn't be even the sound designer, you would be maybe the sound designer that focuses on science fiction sounds or whatever, almost like, or the character artist rather than just the artist, or even the character artist that focuses on the facial expressions of the characters or the creases in the clothing or whatever. Everyone's specialized in those big companies, but you can be more be all you can be sort of in a smaller company. You have to be, because a small team has to cover all the bases of a larger team. So yeah, I direct voice actors, I do the music, I do the sound design, but I also get to do a little bit of like fiddling with the story and community management and answering emails, and running the Twitter account and whatnot. So you get to wear a lot of hats, which is cool.
Nice. So I'm curious then. So that's a very interesting thing I think is interesting about you guys. Because the polished nature of your game. So you guys have stuff like you said you have like voice actors and like a voice talent and stuff too. Why? What do you determine? Because like I'd say when you get obviously tighter the budget of the game, I'd argue voice acting is one of the first things that tend to get cut fundamentally because cost, and it's an excess cost you kind of control. What do you why, while you're writing the story, did you determine that to be like an important piece of this game and stuff?
Mostly, I think because it was such a success in the Payday games. Like people really liked the characters, and we figured it wouldn't, because the characters in those games were like the backstory was really not really. It was paper thin, pretty much. Like it wasn't like thought through to a huge degree. And I was like, let's create characters for this one, but have put some more effort into it. And we haven't really seen that yet in the early access product as it is, but I'm confident that people will enjoy these characters a lot.
Nice. So one of the other tasks, since I'm gonna obviously harp on your task that I've seen you do and talk about since you're here, you talk about you do like design work in this game, but I noticed a few of you do design work as what you guys describe as design. So what has been kind of like your task kind of like that we've kind of seen in there, and we'll kind of go from there.
In design,
Yeah, so like, what decision you made? Have you been more focused on like the combat of the game? Have you been more focused on the look of stuff?
I've been mostly in everything audio related. As mentioned earlier, I've directed the voice actors and done sound design and the music. But yeah, I was early on. Ulf and I were the ones who sort of tried to create the universe where the game takes place, both the things that you see and the things outside of where you're trapped. So I guess I could take risk like the take credit for the fact that you go down into the underground with this elevator sort of contraption. That was that I think, as if I recall correctly, was my idea, because we wanted to, like, when we made the Payday games, the first Payday game at least, we started thinking like, how can we make a game that on screenshots and in trailers and stuff looks like a AAA game, but we're trying to make the most of what a really small team can do. So we can't do these Call of Duties, Call of Duty story campaign maps where it's like you're moving from A to B and it's like a roller coaster. Something's happening. Some scripted stuff is happening at every turn. In every corner there's some helicopter crashing into the building, and there's like radio chatter, and then it's like a scripted event where it's like civilians running across the street, and you have to, you get it. It's super like exciting to play those games, but we could not compete with that. We had to do something with the small team that we had. So we started like, let's make a map. That's the first one we made was the bank in the first Payday game, the bank heist. And then we started thinking like, maybe we fold the map on top of itself. So you move back and forth through the same rooms all the time. And the upside of that is that it starts pristine and all the customers are standing in line and stuff like that in the bank. And then as you move through it the next time, everyone is like hunched down, lying on the ground because you've been screaming and firing your weapons. And then the next time you run through that same room, there's like bullet holes and glass is broken, and there's like dead SWAT, operatives and cops lying about and things like. So it changes over time. You see the same room sort of evolve into chaos. So that was a nice idea. Like, let's make smaller maps and move back and forth through them and have like random objectives. So for GTFO, the idea was the same, to sort of try to make the most of something that we could do. We could something that our small team could manage with the experience and the tool set and the skills that we have. So it was a sort of an easy decision to like, let's come up with a reason for why you're stuck inside, because then we can have these. It's easier to make the maps. You don't have to have all these vast outdoors like areas that would be hard to sort of guide the player through anyway, because it's supposed to be open, so there's a lot of like challenges with that sort of a design where you're moving around outdoors that we don't have to bother with, really, those challenges. It was just let's make it horror, let's make it claustrophobic, and then just dark and as scary as we can, with despite the fact that you're playing together with friends, because a lot of horror games obviously rely on the fact that you're alone and you're isolated, and then in this game you got up to 3 friends with you, and it's a challenge for us, of course, to make it tense and make it scary with those conditions, but the claustrophobia, I think, helps.
So I'm very curious. That actually brings up a good point I'm curious about then. So obviously claustrophobia, I agree, probably helps with the friends element, but were you guys not super concerned then, or maybe you were and you just went for it anyway, that because inherently I had a bunch of friends with me, it's inherently less scary? Or are you going for more like when I'm in a movie theater with a bunch of friends and it's just as terrifying?
Well, yeah, we realized it wouldn't be as scary. Like the game would certainly be more scary, and is more scary if you play it alone. but it's balanced and designed to be played with friends because we wanted to make a co-op game. It just lended itself, the horror genre sort of lended itself to be the setting for such a game, because when the surroundings are scary and dark, you're like less likely to run off on these Leroy Jenkins sort of
suicide missions. Yeah,
exactly, like running off on those side missions, solo runs and stuff, and you're like keep staying together because you want to have someone cover your back. So it's sort of like the atmosphere of the game itself, if it's horror, teaches the players or shows the players without words how you're supposed to behave in the game. If it was a military game, it would sort of, I guess, be the same because a military team would keep a tight crew and be like keeping it together. But if it was too the feeling of this ragtag sort of predator type of team, then that would give the wrong impression. You would play the game differently, and you would play it in a game that it wasn't intended to be played.
That makes sense. So I'm curious, kind of going down this path of it being a horror game, and obviously talk about how there's like limited resources, and that's probably a big part of these kind of horror games. How have you been like balancing that with like multiple players in mind, kind of like to make sure it's not all of a sudden like I have the one player who's just holding the entire team together? Like, because to me is try to purposely make sure they're actually working together, and not just the other two players just going do.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge, of course. And then when you decide to just go down that route, you know that you're going to alienate some people, because you make design decisions that become sort of hardcore. Like, you can't play the game in any other way. We just decided that let's just not give everyone the same information, so that if you carry the tool that does this, you have to if you carry the biotracker, it's not like you project the information that you collect with the biotracker to everyone else's HUD so that everyone can see what you see. You have to tell them verbally over voice chat, like, I see this many enemies in the next room. So it's a lot of it is about withholding information and just giving it to maybe one player. Or if it's not information, then it's some sort of power. You only have one tool slot each, and then there's like useful tools, but everyone in the team can only carry one. So if someone's carrying the trip mines, but they're not using them, the team's going to lose pretty much, because you got to use all of the assets and the tools that you have to their fullest potential, sort of, in order to survive. Otherwise, it's going to go downhill pretty fast.
For the record, that is the most payday thing I think you've described about this game so far, is the idea of this kind of balancing and the use of the individual tools. I'm curious, what are like some of your maybe favorite tools to use, or things that like when you go in a game you're like, I have to have X?
Well, most often I play the game with journalists or people, like, we want to show the game, and then we let them choose whatever they think is exciting, and I get to sort of choose whatever's left over from that. But if I get to choose whatever I like, I love the Mind Deployer. It's such a powerful tool if you know how to use it.
Mind explaining kind of for everyone, what is that tool and what is it roughly?
It's like a device that you use to place mines on any surface, pretty much, and it shoots out a laser beam, and when a monster walks through that laser beam, it detonates the mine. But you can set it up, like, the best way to use it is to set it up in a doorway, even before you go into a room where things might go wrong. You don't back out and set up the mine when you're backing out. You set it before you go in, and then you try to sneak around and kill the monsters with melee attacks, and like, if things go south and a monster or several monsters wake up and sort of aggro the entire room, or alert the other monsters, and everyone's running towards you, you back out through that same door. Everyone is in on it. Like, everyone in the team should know what's the exit strategy, and then everyone runs out through that door. And then you already have the mine there, and the players themselves can't trigger the mine. So it's already there, and you don't have to like stressfully, in a rush sort of set up that mine. It's already there. And if you manage to kill all the monsters in the room and they don't aggro, then you can just walk back and pick up that mine because it didn't detonate, and you can just pick it up. So it's a very good like exit strategy sort of thing. And if it's a door that you can actually close, it's even better, because then the monster, it's not, if it's an open doorway, then the very first monster that runs through is going to trigger and detonate the mine. And that's like one mine for one monster trade, which is not a good trade for you. You want to kill a couple of monsters with that mine, and if you close the door, that's the sweet thing, they're going to be like piled up on the other side trying to break through. And once they actually break through that door and the first monster steps into that laser beam, it's going to kill maybe 4, 5, 6 monsters, which is fantastic. So you actually use the door to close the doors to not only buy time for yourself to maybe set up, maybe more mines or sentry guns or, glue on the ground or whatnot, in order to sort of lean everything you possibly can in your favor to survive the fight. But also closing the doors will also, make the monsters sort of pile up on the other side. So there's a bunch of monsters coming through the door at the same time, which is a better way to have it when there's a mine there.
Curious, so you said you tend to also play with a bunch. You said you tend to be like the guy, you're like, okay, we're gonna do a press briefing. You're the default player. What is like the normal tool you get stuck with? And also it tends to, because obviously it probably isn't that mine tool. I assume it's not. It's one of those tools like that everyone takes.
No, and that's the sweet thing. Everyone tests different things. Some people want to live the aliens fantasy and pick the sentry gun, obviously. But then there's a lot of people that, okay, I know what a sentry gun is, but what's the seafoam launcher? I want to try that out. Or I guess the bioscan would also be aliens sort of fantasy, because it's like the motion tracker in the the second Alien movie. But yeah, so people choose different things. So I get to try. It's not like this. It's the same tool that always gets left over, because we've managed to balance them and make them equally interesting and powerful, just in different ways. Some are offensive and some are defensive. So I think that's a testament to Ulf and Hjalmar. Who are the main sort of guys designing stuff, in terms of gameplay. It's really well balanced.
That's very interesting, and that is a very high compliment. If it's a relatively even split up between the weapons, that's obviously a very hard thing to happen, because I feel like naturally, even if weapons inherently are similar in like power level, like a direct level thing, very much there is the default. Like, it's the joke always that in MMO, everyone's always a DPS. It's kind of like that thing of like there are still default things in player bases that they kind of lean towards.
Yeah. It's easier to pick the offensive things, I guess, like mines, but even more so the sentry guns, because you know what they do and you want to have like more firepower. You know what that does. It's harder to, I guess, quantify how many monsters you kill, how many more monsters you'd kill if you have the glue, sort of the foam gun, because you can foam the floor and then the monsters run through the foam and they get stuck in the foam and they become sitting ducks, and you can pick them off either with a sledgehammer and run up to them, or you can kill them with like headshots, because they're standing still. It's easier to pick them off and you save ammunition, but it's harder to quantify how much of an advantage that is compared to a sentry gun that you just put down on the ground and it shoots for you in a direction and you don't even have to be there. But it's we do get statistics of how many people use certain tools, so we can sort of tweak them if they seem to be not popular enough.
So obviously, and I was kind of get to this, so it kind of works out. So you guys are obviously in early access. Is that one of your goals right now then, to try to have a rough balance, would you say, in all of the weapons? Or are you guys okay with some of them being disproportionately more popular?
Well, it's the importance is not for all of them to be equally popular, because people might choose weapons because of how they sound or how they look, and not know that there are other weapons that are actually much better in terms of gameplay than those weapons that are popular. So that's fine if people, like most people, lean towards a certain weapon. But we just want to be on top and know that there's no weapon that is like overpowered. And of course, we're going to add more than is in the game right now. So right now it's 4 tools. So a team of 4 can cover all the tools, but we're going to come up with. We have many ideas for more tools than that, and like symbiotic relationships between the tools, so that you can, like, if you carry tool A and I carry tool B, we can actually combine them and like maybe there's something to set fire to the foam, and then the foam doesn't just stop the monsters, but actually also deals damage to the monsters as they're stuck because the foam is on fire. Something like that, where it's like you sort of cross your beams and combine the powers of your tools, and then it's going to be really like angst in the loadout, because you want to choose something that really, combination of tools that is really good, and if there's more than 4 tools, you're always leaving tools behind, because a team of 4 can't carry more than 4 tools, really. And then of course, it's not like everyone has to have different tools. It might be a strategy for everyone in the team to have trip mines or sentry guns or whatever. That's the interesting thing too. So yeah, definitely part of the early access phase is expanding upon the game in terms of what's in the toolbox for the player, and make sure that all the tools are like interesting and valid options. Not necessarily in every expedition, because some expeditions are like, oh, it's darkness, then it might be better to have something like this, or it's more close quarters, then maybe a shotgun would be a better choice than in, like, if the layout is different, and the monsters can deal damage from further away. So it's not like everything's supposed to be a valid option in every expedition, but that's up to the players really to discover, I guess, because it is a game that is designed to be like trial and error on the player's behalf. You gotta go down and try out a strategy, and then probably most likely die, and then evaluate like what went wrong, and what could we do better, and could we switch gear, equipment, and for some different stuff, and try something else and do it better.
Okay, so I'm curious on this early access topic. So I'll start with a compliment. You guys are extremely positively rated, especially on Steam and even the buzz around you guys. But I'm curious, kind of, because obviously you guys have been in early access now for about 5 months, if I did my math right. Have you guys walked in early access and anything was like completely unbalanced that you're like, oh, we had to completely fix that because when you put it in front of the giant mass audience, something just was completely different than you put it in front of the little testers you had?
It's actually 4 months to the day. Yeah, this 9th of April is because it was released on the 9th of December. 2019.
December as November. For some reason in my head when I did that math.
No, but it's 5 is close to 4, so it's close. But yeah, we've been out since December 9th, 2019, and the first update maybe took a little longer than usual or took longer than we hoped that the updates will take in the future. Partly because of the holidays, and we really took the holidays off because we had been working really hard in order to get the game out in December, and we were like patching the game and then going on vacation and not working actually on the next update until we came back in January. And then, I mean, we're sort of finding our footing in terms of developing these updates as well. So that's why the first update seemed to take so very long, you know. But yeah, when we released the game, I'd say we were just overwhelmed with how many people actually were looking forward to something like this, because we didn't dare believe that there was a huge audience for a game like this. We just figured, okay, we've made it for, you know, a fairly small amount of money. We don't have to, you know, sell millions of copies in order to break even and feel that it's a success. It is a niche game. It is it's not a broad market sort of product. And I mean, it's not that like the sales numbers have been, you know, at the levels of a broad market product, but they have definitely, and the response on social media, etc., has definitely been, you know, surprising us, because there seems to be a lot of people who are like tired of games, you know, leading them by the hand, and yeah, they want something that is a real challenge. And I have no illusion that, you know, not everyone wants every game to be like this. You know, there's supposed to be more casual games and more like accessible games too, naturally. But GTFO has its place in sort of the fauna of games, or in the on the market, I guess. And it's scratching an itch that not a lot of other games were scratching and are scratching.
Look, I really appreciate your modesty there, considering you guys, if I remember correctly, were up for multiple like best in shows at E3 one year and were revealed at the Game Awards. So I really appreciate your modesty. Like, oh, I guess we just didn't think there was a massive audience for this. Like, I know you probably truly believe that, but I really appreciate that. Like, inherently, like we like, it's one of those, like, you could tell you guys really care about it. But like, there's a reason I'd say you probably won those, like, were up for those awards and had those things with the early builds of the game too.
Yeah, when journalists were playing the game at E3 2018, that's like 18 months before it actually came out for the general public. It was it gave us a good idea, a pretty good idea at least, of what the game could be, you know. But it was a very controlled environment. Like, we played, journalists could play with 3 of us, or they could be 2 journalists playing with 2 of us. So we were always there, sort of like role playing and controlling the pace of the game session and telling them exactly how the game's supposed to be played, and sort of, yeah, it was sort of like a controlled environment, and we were there, you know, looking over their shoulders and making sure that they enjoyed it, and you know, focused on them and revived them if they were downed, and gave them the time to sort of, I don't know what the word would be, but like introducing them to the game really in person. And it's a whole different thing to release it to the general public, and, you know, you're not there with every single person playing the game. They're installing the game, starting it up, and like, they're being dropped into this, literally in the game, you're dropped into this underground world, and it's like you're on your own. There's no tutorial, you know, level or anything. There's no one showing you the ropes, not even in the game, you know, let alone, you know, someone sitting beside you telling you how to play the game. So it's very like, yeah, it's a different scenario when we're releasing it to the general public. Of course, those awards at those shows were really, you know, confidence boosts, and yeah, we love to get that acknowledgement, obviously, but still, we were sort of like trepidatious. Like, are people actually going to enjoy this? Is it, because you got to be sort of a masochist to enjoy GTFO. You got to find the fun and the entertainment in losing, pretty much. You gotta think that it's fun to like, oh, we died, but let's start over, you know, and try it again, and see that the satisfaction is even greater when you finally, eventually, hopefully succeed.
For the record, I think we all could have known everyone was a masochist by the success of the Souls games, but that could just be me.
Yeah, that's true.
Perfect. So I'm gonna ask you the hard question now, considering all the other questions have been easy. So you guys are in early access. You know the question I gotta ask you is: do you have any update of when you guys will be out of early access, or is it still early access for the time being?
It's not so much that we've set it's not so much that we've set a time frame for how long we need to be in early access. Rather, it is an amount of content and a certain level of development within the game itself that we feel that we need to reach in order to be able to call the game a fully fledged 1.0 product. So we don't know, but we knew when we got into it that we wouldn't do it within a year. So it's safe to say that we won't come out of early access in 2020. So maybe sometime in 2021. But that's a guess really at this point. We just want to make it right, and make sure that when it does come out and it is a 1.0 product, that it has, enough of what's expected of a final product.
I've got one more question, then that hopefully won't be as hard. So I'm curious. So you guys been in access, and as we registered now for 4 months, and we're gonna say it's been probably between 15 and 20% of your total percent in access, maybe a little bit less, roughly speaking on the timeline you're talking about, and rough. Have you feel like early access has gone how you expected it to go, or do you feel like, oh, that was not at all what I expected, and it just kind of blew everything in the air immediately?
Well, I can say we're happy that, because we were discussing before we went public with this concept of the rundowns, where the game does not, for those who don't know, the game does not have like a traditional campaign. It's like we release campaigns and then we wipe the campaigns from the game and you can play them, and a new campaign sort of replaces the old one. Obviously, we're adding new stuff, but also repurposing or reusing stuff from the old campaign, sort of. And the campaign is called a rundown. The game was released in early access in December 9th last year with 6 expeditions or maps or levels, or whatever you want to call them. We call them expeditions. And then we made this update with the new rundown that has 10 expeditions. And I can say we're happy that we didn't promise everyone that, we're going to release, a new set of maps every 6 weeks or something like that, because we're still finding our footing in developing those things. And we'll see. Maybe we have to tweak it and make sure that the updates are more frequent, but not as thorough, or not as there's not as much content in each update. It's a balance thing, but we'll see. It has to, somehow we're gonna have to find a tempo that is allows us to put enough cool new stuff in the game, and still I guess retain everyone's attention, so that they don't think that the game is we've stopped developing the game. But there are other tricks as well. We can start a developer diary or something like that online, and a blog or something that just keeps people can see that it's to get the confidence that things are coming. We'll see. There are different venues or different ways to go.
Well, Simon, I want to thank you for joining me for this discussion. So let's clarify then. It is GTFO on Steam, and it's GTFOthegame.com.
Exactly. Yes.
Perfect. And then it's on early access right now. You guys are $35. I see you're currently on sale. We'll see when this comes out if you're still on sale, but it's $35 right now for the complete full price game.
Yeah, exactly. When it's not on sale, it's $35.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for joining me, and best of luck with continuing development of this game, especially during the crazy chaos world outside. Hope you get some inspiration from it.
Thanks for having me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview special of the SWW show. I'm calling these the quarantine editions because all of us are still some capacity in quarantine or self-isolation or whatever they call it now. It just means we're not allowed to leave our houses at all, so we're really bored people. So I have with me a lot of guests today. Oh, it's a lot of guests. So I figured let's start with probably Jeff, because again, we're just going how I see the list. Tell me what your name is, what you do, and probably for the entire team, tell us the name of the game you're working on.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I am a team lead and programmer with Farahung Games, and we're working on the competitive tower defense game Sons of Ra.
Okay.
I'm Joe. Sorry.
You're good,
I'm
I was about to tell you.
Nice. I'm Joe. I work on UI, UX, and also some marketing stuff.
I'm Mark. I am a main artist for Farahung Games and sometimes do design stuff.
And I'm Michael, the other programmer on the team for the game.
Okay, so you guys are Farahung Games, you guys are doing Sons of Ra, and immediately, it being a tower defense I think is very fascinating, and we'll probably jump into one of you in a second with this, because it's a genre that I feel like really existed from like 2008 to like 2012, and then since then it's like, once in a while you get a good one, but like, everyone just kind of stopped making them. So I'm curious, for many of you, kind of, maybe whoever originated the idea, why make a tower defense then if it is this somewhat dead genre, unless you disagree with me on that?
Bloons tower defense is eternal, I'll have you know. I don't know, mostly it came down to, obviously I played tower defense games, spent too many hours specifically playing Bloons when I was a kid, but I sort of saw it as a way to approach the RTS genre, which is something that I really enjoy and sort of admire, in a fashion that makes it approachable for people, a little less intense, but by sort of adapting that to a tower defense formula, you're able to, I guess, make it a little easier to get into and a little easier to understand, but still retain a solid amount of complexity.
I'm curious then, what to you is, because I think what we've seen with a lot of genres in the last couple of years in games is we've kind of adjusted their definitions a ton, and I have a hunch tower defense has kind of gone under that same transition. So what to you or the rest of the team defines a tower defense?
So a traditional tower defense is just where you set up a bunch of towers and then you have a certain number of enemy creeps that just sort of come towards you. You defend your base from being blown up. Sons of Ra took that element of it, like you have to build defenses and keep yourself from being blown up, but then turned it a little bit, remixed it, I guess, combined it with, like Jeff said, RTS games, and also a little bit with auto battlers, where you're not just accepting these units coming in and just defending against them, but you're also attacking your opponent with your own units. So we end up with this really fast-paced push-pull sort of game that we haven't seen anywhere else.
So, and I'll probably hound in a second, just 'cause I'm very curious, because I think that is a very fascinating thing about it being an auto battler, or obviously I assume you guys at least looked at MOBAs in capacity of like understanding some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Why, going back to why lean more on the tower defense then versus maybe that new idea of this auto battler kind of games?
Primarily because when we started this, auto battlers hadn't taken off as a genre. We started about 2 years ago, and like I think auto chess was just starting to become like a thing, like more mainstream. And so it was sort of an accident that we ended up making that comparison where like you make your units and then you have zero control over them. That just sort of happened by necessity because you're doing the attacking and the defending. You don't really have a space to micromanage in the way that we wanted to present our game.
Interesting, because again, I go back to, I just find it fascinating that, like, and I think it's great because I personally really like tower defense, but it's definitely a genre that, like, is not what it was when it kind of started, which is probably the start of that mobile era kind of, too, which is when it's stronger.
Yeah, I mean, it was never really precisely a traditional tower defense. it was that's the way we sort of pitched it initially. But like Joe said, since you're like attacking and defending, really the only similarity comes in you build towers, or I guess that's the generic term, but defensive installations at over a map to prevent things from getting to you. But other than that, that's really the end of the similarities in a lot of ways, because you're not like juggling leader powers or active abilities most of the time in tower defense games, at least not primarily. You're also definitely not attacking. It's not even in the name. So
I'm gonna jump in here, and I had some other kind of things leading more into this idea. So I'm gonna actually jump in, Mark. I'm gonna steal you for a second, since you're my resident artist. Apparently, I'm talking to.
Yes, hi.
So I'm curious because immediately what's fascinating is I think the art style of the like people that are attacking. Where did that come from?
Originally, the idea of it sort of portraying everything as a board game was originally just a constraint because we didn't have a huge amount of like art asset talent. But then we realized that it would have been way more interesting thematically to like lean into that. So we have one map that's built off of a ancient Egyptian board game, and we have another map that is designed to look like it's been carved into the stone of this mountain. Like we wanted to have, once we had the idea of like board game elements and board game pieces come up, it like really gelled well with the rest of the game, and so we just kept pushing it and pushing it.
Then on a more fundamental level, was there something with like the Egyptian look that you guys really liked then, or is it just something that was more very unique but relatively simple?
The genre, I would say the play style came first, and we've said this before. We started as a class project. We met in college, and the class we were starting this in had everybody in the class had like pitch a game concept, and we were constrained by it. We had to somehow draw inspiration from a Spielberg movie, and I'm not really a movie buff, but I watch Indiana Jones, and I was like, that happened in Egypt. What if we just did like mythology? But aside from that, I also really enjoy mythology, and leaning into that sort of gave us access to the whole idea of a group of gods who have special powers that you can use as a mechanic as well, more than just flavor.
Obviously, as we said before, you guys named as Pharaoh Hound Games. So, like, I assumed the Egyptian thing is obviously pretty intimate from the game began. General question: when you guys do a follow-up game, now you're stuck in the Egyptian theme record, so I'm really hoping you guys have something good with that for a sequel.
Yeah. We've actually talked a little bit about like what we would if we could do this and we had like a budget and a bunch of time, like what different mythologies we would lean on. But I think Pharaoh Hound Games was something we made just not thinking we were ever going to be a real company. And now I think we're pretty married to it. It's a fun name. It's certainly different than a lot of other companies. It's certainly harder to spell than a lot of other companies.
I'll give you a clue. It's not like the default of like every game ever where like you like Pharaoh is one of those few things. The joke for any game company is find random noun in the dictionary and put games at the end. But like at least you guys have like a theme with it that like it's not a common theme.
Yeah.
It's not like when you have teams that are like what. I hope there's not a team like this. I don't know one. I'm just playing now. It's like you do like a dark studio and you go, oh, you really just went okay, adjective, perfect. So at least you guys have that to lean on.
And we're lucky in that it actually doesn't sound too bad. It kind of flows well. It's not like awkward, which a lot of fledgling companies can sort of fall into that pit of awkward name.
Or they just do first game name games or first game name studios. But honestly, I'm happy with it. It's weird, and then gives us a cool logo. We have like this little dog head that Mark made up, and we got to refine it, and it looks nice. And it howls. It's animated now.
now that I'm curious, because you guys obviously have in some capacity been around now. From what I've read and seen, you guys have shown the game out in public capacities and like show floors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, A, the initial reaction to the game, and then B, kind of like, what are some things that like you guys thought were really intuitive that you're like, oh, no one understood this?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, for the second half of that, the answer is most of it.
When the game first started, we had like this face button control scheme that was like if you wanted to build a unit, you would press A, but if you wanted to build a tower, you pressed X, or you press B or Y for other stuff. And so like players eventually got it, but it was really counterintuitive. Before we took it to any show floor, we realized we were probably going to have to make that better. And so we just took some time, sat down, came up with a new control scheme. And honestly, places that were rejecting us for festivals before, as soon as we made that change, we started getting accepted to all sorts of stuff. And I think from there, we were able to really find and continue refining our game into something that's ended up being a lot like really fun.
So that's very interesting. So, was it really as simple as just switching that one, like the layout, and then scheme in that capacity?
I wouldn't call it simple.
Okay, well, simple, not technically simple. Let me rephrase the statement. I don't mean simple, like, obviously, for whoever to program that, you sat down, broke down crying, and then worked it out for 5 weeks. I understand logistically it was not easy, but I meant,
it was 20 hours over the course of about 2 days.
Yeah.
Mark gave me, like, really basic assets, and I just, like, sat down one night. I'm like, all right, cracks knuckles, here we go. And then like 48 hours later, I walked out of the room like looking like a ghost.
I don't know if it was just that simple, but that was one of a lot of refinements that we did when we realized that we wanted to take it places. We sat down, they're not great, but we made a bunch of sound effects. We made our visual effects a little bit more, juicy, add screen shake, all these little tricks make especially indie games better. And I think that they all came together to give us something that it was easier for us to find the fun in it as well. We could see now what people liked more, what was making our game special, hone in on it further once we made those refinements just visually. I think for me at least, it really reinvigorated my passion for the project itself.
Yeah, I'd say to that end, once we decided that we were going to actually like take it somewhere, we probably spent 6 months not even really doing anything new, just purely
fixing and refining. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
So now I'm gonna do the fun technical part here. So my background, for the record, is a lot of programming and design stuff. So I figure, Mike, if I understand correctly, it's you and so you guys said you and Jeff are the more programmers of the team. And so I'm curious, kind of. So you guys are using Unity, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I just made a general assumption there, looking at the game and how we've talked about it. I'm curious because the constraint that I'm curious about with you guys is the nature of tower defenses and limitations of like the amount of things on the screen at one time. Have you guys hit any of those technical feats with that? And if so, like your work, like if you had in general, like okay, that's why we can build any soft rules because of it.
I don't think we ever hit any of those. We were always wary and careful about not just going extremely hard in one direction and being like, now there's 1,000 couple units in the screen. So we always tried to limit it, but we never actually hit a ceiling or anything that prevented us from doing any of that. Thankfully.
I was gonna say, have you guys had any of that stuff? Because I'm curious, because even like the way your game looks really refined, or things like comment top the art too, and you guys' general design look. But like looking at that, I'm gonna go, this thing has to take a decent hit on processing because of that look.
Yeah, processing is definitely our biggest spike, I guess, when there's a lot of things happening, but we haven't encountered any bottlenecks or anything, thankfully, so far.
Nothing that lasted too long. I don't know if this was something I ever like talked to the team about, but I know for a while some of our detection for if towers were aware of what units were near them, or if units were aware of what units were near them, things like that. Was it had been causing some problems, and I had to creatively engineer some better ways for them to know what's going on without blowing up the CPU. It is one of those like 6-month changes things, but it wasn't ever like super impactful. It was the sort of thing you'd only notice if it was really intense.
Curious then with that, because obviously you guys on the back end wrote some level of at least simplicity or complex, my assumption, AI running a lot of these guys. Has that been one of those magic things that's been a pain in the ass, I assume, running all of this in the back end?
The game started like much different, and every time we did something, our first iteration, worked. Everything seemed fine, and then we're like, oh, this is actually like maybe not fun, or maybe they should do these things instead. So we have to go back, and then we're like, why do we do things that way? What were we thinking? So it's been a lot of fixing those things beforehand, but especially at the beginning where we thought, it's going to be a smaller project. It's not something that we gave a lot of attention to unless it was giving us like immediate problems.
Are you implying that something that starts as a student project might be rushed at some points? No, that's impossible.
No,
that's not
never.
how this works.
Yeah, our first 3 months, I think, like we had those like 6 months of improvements. I think the first 3 of that was just rebuilding most of the way the game worked. Almost all, except for a couple key things, which are I think still giving us some headaches. Almost everything had to be remade at some point and at some level. Even like the way we were doing like loading different scenes has to be like fixed at some point.
So much was redone.
Why do I feel like you had like one thing, you like do not destroy and load, and that was like your one thing tracking everything, and like you're building and building and building and building.
So a little dirty secret was that for a period of time, there was like 10 different loading screen scenes, each pointing to a different subsequent scene.
So if you played on like level 1 and you wanted to get to scene 3, we had a specific loading screen for 1 to 3. Every single loading screen was a different thing, and they were all like put in by hand. You had to know which one you were loading. And if you made a new scene, you got to make new loading screens for everything now.
Please tell me that's not how the game still works. Actually, no. Please tell me that is how the game still works.
No, that thankfully has been solved. We just have one loading screen.
Have that, and like one of the things is like you have cheats in the game. You could like they type in the loading screen variable, and that's what pops up instead of the like
victory menu.
Yeah.
We still have some of our old menus in the project, and I keep making jokes that we have to have like a 1 in 1 million chance that you just get this really bad like student project version of whatever menu you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And I really hope we can implement that someday.
You should have, like, they do, like, Doom came, like, a lot of remake games had them where you do, like, new and old. You should just have that where it's, like, you toggle a switch and then you just have the old UI pop up, so it's like you're playing the old game.
Yeah, like the Halo anniversary stuff. You press it and you just get a crappy menu.
Except people would have no nostalgia for it, so they'd be very just confused why it's in there.
Just be us.
I think Mark still has our first trailer that we
Yeah.
made for
We still have the first trailer, which is
presentation thing.
We're going to release that on April Fool's one of these years. We will do it.
One of these years, I appreciate that a lot. So I'm curious, and this is probably for, realistically, if I understand correctly, it's probably more of a Jeff or a Joe thing. How is being an indie game now and how the world's crashing beneath us, right? And you guys are still saying you're launching this year. How has marketing now changed since you can't go to, like, conventions and stuff?
Right. Conventions we found are really, really good for marketing when you know how to leverage it. We're, like, did not know how to leverage it for a long time, so we mostly would use them to network with other people. Which is a great thing for us, but in terms of like release, we found that most of our successful advertising has just been through, reaching out online. our last beta and our demo were both amidst this whole, stay-at-home quarantine thing, and we're hoping that, just basically doing that instead of all these shows might end up getting, we almost have a captive audience, people who have nothing to do but play video games and look at YouTube.
It should be noted, almost strangely enough, that I feel like our marketing, so we were going to be part of the Indie Mega Booth with GDC this year. I feel like because of the cancellation, a lot of different groups have been running campaigns to promote independent games, independent developers, and our marketing situation may actually be better than it would have been otherwise in a strange way.
The most, I'd say lucky, because it's really not, but it's the most, like, weird chain of events, because I've been hearing that kind of story, too, of people being like, yeah, I was gonna go to, like, GDC or something, or E3, but then, like, I'll be like, what, I'm one of 1,000 games, but now I'm part of this weird online showcase that has, like, 20 games, but, like, has still a third of the marketing budget as that did, and I don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's a lot of it is also Jeff just like trolling Twitter and looking for people who make posts like this, like saying, hey, if you have an indie game, let us know. And he keeps posting stuff and we're like, yeah, do it. So we've just, been finding these little opportunities, and it's been really cool. I think the game dev community in general has this awesome camaraderie where people just seem to want to help each other. And now more than ever, I'm seeing that just in spades, and it's been really, really nice to see like all the support that everyone's been giving everybody else.
Nice. So we're getting towards the tail end of our talk here, so this is gonna be the fun thing, I thought, since we have 4 of you here. And each of you have a little bit of different discipline. I was gonna go down my list, so starting with Jeff and work our way down. I was curious if each of you talk about like a sense or two, like what is your favorite either thing you want to talk about in the game, or your favorite, like, it could be like your favorite, like, I really like this art thing, or like, I really think people should know about this X mechanic, kind of.
Oh, God.
I know. Pick your baby. I'm asking you to pick your baby, put it in front of everyone like it's Simba, and just don't drop it.
Oh, boy.
And pick one thing about your baby that you like, nothing else.
I guess I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite, but it might be what I'm most proud of right now, which is back around. So I'm just going to tell a short story.
Okay.
Here we go.
This starts with back in January, Mark and I went to MagFest to exhibit our game. And we were sitting in the Airbnb, like after the last day of the show, or the second to last day. And we're like, we don't know what our timeline. We've been telling people like we're planning to have network multiplayer, and we're like, do we know for certain we have the timeline to get that done? Because it's, as we found, it's a hugely titanic problem to solve. And
the answer is always no. The answer is always no. You just go, it's coming later.
Yeah.
Someday, maybe.
So I told Mark something that I had not wanted to do whatsoever, which is like, I will sit down, I will make a single player mode, I will do it in a month. And then about 3 weeks later, that actually went and happened. And so now there's a single player mode in the game that I lied a little bit. It took about a month and a week, but it works, and people find the AI to be competitive, and it's not a pushover. And sometimes it does smart things and scares Mark. So I guess it's that. The fact that we, after a year and a half of development, that was entirely centered around a multiplayer thing, that we were able to put together a pretty, moderately responsive, capable of making somewhat smart decisions AI that's able to do everything a player would be able to do, whether that be, using their powers on appropriate targets, attacking a lane that they see as advantageous to them, or any other number of things.
Nice. That was a story, and I'll give the thing I'm impressed though is you guys still have multiplayer and you made single player, which again, going back to multiplayer just never works. especially on small
Yeah.
teams. It's always like, we're gonna get to it.
Yeah. That's the big-
Eventually.
yeah, we're still trying to get it to be networked because it's all been local so far, but we're still hopeful. For my own thing that I think that I'm the most proud of was just is just getting our new control scheme, and like we went from being a game that like we had to be there explaining everything to being something that we like have confidently been able to show on Steam as a demo, or to beta testers who we have very little interaction with. And even when we were showcasing the game at like public events, some of our most loud fans were like little kids, and I've seen a mom and her child play the game, and it's really cool to have a game that it seems like just about anybody can play. I'm really proud of that accomplishment, that we just have a game that is that accessible.
For me, I guess the thing I'm most proud of is, so if you've played our game, we have an obelisk tower that shoots lightning, and we have gone through 3 different versions of what that obelisk shooting lightning looks like. Originally, it was just a ball of electricity that was so small on screen that people didn't necessarily know what it was. It just looked like a ball was moving across. Then I went through and actually made a version that like put a little animated lightning spray in the game to have the lightning hit the guy, but it still didn't look great. And then I did something that I often like to do, which is dip my toes into technical art. And so I created a system. So I have like the lightning with multiple models for each frame of the animation. Then I have a shader like cycle through each model to create this 3D lightning bolt effect that just goes across the map and hits the unit. And it looks so good. I'm so happy that it worked out, because if it didn't, that would have been a lot of time wasted.
Yeah, that I can see. That's really impressive, because I'm like, I don't think I would have thought of that one, because I'm like, wait a minute, that's how we're gonna make. But yeah, I can see where you'd be really annoyed. On the other hand, you're like, well, that was a good 2 weeks. We're gonna have a good day.
Yeah.
I think his tweet where he showed that on our account is still the most liked tweet on our
Yeah,
Twitter.
well, it's our most liked Reddit post too.
Mm-hmm. After it did really well on Reddit, we were like, hey, maybe we should do more Reddit posts and tweets where we talk about the technical art stuff that we do.
And I guess last me, and it's going to be slight cop-out answer, I guess. But I'm just really proud of the entire project itself, because 2 years ago when we first started, I never expected to be going to California, LA to show off at E3. I never expected to be going to Seattle to PAX to show off. And it's not just showing off that has been like my favorite part about this thing is meeting the indie dev community has been. I knew it existed, I knew it was sizable and like very, very inclusive, and everybody really always rooting for each other, but it wasn't until I talked to dozens of them that I realized that these are probably some of the best people I have ever met in my life. So I guess that's my absolute favorite part. Just proud of the entire project and where it's taking all of us.
Look at that, the nice, touch-warming, selfless answer. That is the correct answer. Okay, now we have the rough board. I'm gonna need our PR spin here, guys. When is this game coming out, or is it still this July 2020 nebulous date?
We don't yet have a hard date. We have to check through some stuff, but it's still going to be July 2020 is going to be launching on early access, and then thereafter we will be launching on PC and Xbox fully sometime in the future. That one is more nebulous.
Mm-hmm.
So is it Steam early access? You said.
Mm-hmm.
Any other of the stores? Was it just Steam right now?
Just Steam right now. I love a lot of storefronts. We just don't have clear agreements with them just yet, so we gotta make sure that's all good.
Perfect. Okay, so Steam early access July. mystical July. Xbox some point in the future. Perfect. Okay, and then the game is. Let's make sure I got your links right. It is at Fairhound Games on Twitter. And it is Fairhound.games, which I think is the most genius part of your URL right there, for the record.
Yeah, and probably the easiest way to find us is just on Steam. Our store page is up, so you can just type in Sons of Ra, and it'll pop up. There's a link there to our Discord, our website, our Twitter, all that stuff. It's probably the easiest way to get to it.
Perfect. Well, guys, thanks for taking the time out of your day to talk to me during a fun pandemic world outside. I look forward to the game, and I'm excited to see how it all comes together. Especially, you guys get to be one of those Nebula student games that actually get to say you actually made it all the way through the entire cycle, and not the end of semester when it all crashes and burns.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This podcast was a product of the SWW Show. You can find more at the SWWshow.com or Facebook.com/the SWW Store or Twitter.com/SWW. You can find out more about Mike at Mikey_Maroney on Twitter and more about AJ at LoCBor on Twitter. Remember, new episodes come out twice a month, one focusing on the new entertainment news and one focusing on movie club, so new and an old movie. You can find out more again at the SWWshow.com. And you can find the show on podcast services around the globe.